So with the introduction of the Night King invasion event, we have also seen through this the introduction of tier 5 units into the game, and this has been something which has met with a lot of controversy. A lot of people were very scared about how this would affect the game and just how much it would change the power balance of things, especially in balancing things towards the higher end accounts, as if they weren't imbalanced enough as it already was. So I thought I'd look into just how much these troops will affect the game, basically. So they came in the form of a new research tree, which you can find here, Strangely Garbed Army. Now, this research tree is gated by unique items called Ancient Scriptures, which are exceedingly difficult to get. So currently, you can only get them through two means. So you can get them from the Amethyst store in here to a maximum of 6 a day, and you can also get them from the VIP store if you are VIP 15, which is the equivalent of about 4.5 million diamonds worth of VIP points, I think, for 10,000 diamonds a day for 10, which is very expensive. And we can actually map out just how many of these will be required to finish this research tree, and it's kind of ridiculous how many are needed actually. So this is from a game called Lords Mobile. A lot of people know this, but a lot of mechanics from GoTWiC are copy-pasted from this game, and they share a lot of similarities. So this exact research tree is basically the exact same research tree as this. You might be somewhat unconvinced when you first hear that. I was too, honestly, but there are hints to the fact that it is blatantly true. So if you look here, whenever you unlock the tier 4 units at the end here, it costs 593 Ancient Scriptures. If you look back at the Lord's Mobile tree to unlock these Luminary troops, which are their equivalent of tier 5s, it costs the same, 593. And also with the Lunar Foundry, if we go look at the Ancient Foundry in this research tree, if it matches this, it will be 30, right? Just like these down here matched the tier 5 units down here. And as you can see, it is also 30 Ancient Scriptures. So if we assume all this matches, which we have no reason to really doubt when these values at 593 and 30 also match, it's sort of harder to plot out all these ones because we can't see straight up like what the 9th and 10th levels will require, for example. But just judging off this, we have enough there to trust it, in my opinion. So overall this will cost over 20,000 Ancient Scriptures. So if you actually do the maths on the methods of getting them that are currently in the game, I've done them myself. So if you buy 6 a day from the Amethyst shop, so every single day you buy this out, it will take you over 9 years to unlock tier 5s with no other purchases. And even though it's a bit quicker, the even more ridiculous one in my opinion is from the VIP store. If you bought these from here and got them from no other sources, and this is the only way of getting Ancient Scriptures you used, and you unlock tier 5s of these, this would cost you over 20 million diamonds, and it would take you over 5.5 years. I think it's quite obvious that these will be added to Black Diamond purchases fairly soon, because if they aren't, these just aren't obtainable. There is no way to unlock these for years currently in the game. So I would imagine only max accounts will actually get their hands on these. And honestly, if I was a normal player, I would literally ignore this research tree and just forget these exist, because you will probably never ever unlock them. However sad that is to say, it's just the reality of it. Because if you are to unlock them, you have to, one, commit to years of playing, but also the amount of account growth you're losing from maxing all these out is just ridiculous. So for example, if I load up a tab here, you would need 600 epic tokens to max out an epic token commander to 4 stars. So that is 600 times 5,700, which is a little bit less than 3.5 million diamonds. So if we take that value there and do 20 million divided by 3,420,000, you could 4-star almost 6 epic token commanders in the diamonds it would cost you to unlock tier 5 troops. And that alone doesn't sound that bad, but you have to remember as well it would take you over 5.5 years as well. So when the black diamond packs come out, if you intend to buy them out, then sure, buy out the VIP store. But if you can't mass buy those black diamond packs when they inevitably get released, I just don't think this is worth it. I don't think it's worth what you're giving up, because it's just too much of an investment. That is way, way, way too expensive for any reasonable player to be keeping on top of, because 10,000 diamonds a day, you need to be in a top alliance to afford and sustain that. And if you're in a top alliance, you're probably trying to buy out epic tokens every single day as well. And if you buy both of them at once, your VIP store purchases a day will be reaching like 50,000. And unless you're spending huge amounts of black diamonds, it's just entirely unsustainable. So we can also see the other systems on how tier 5 units will be unlocked and how they'll work. So you'll need to get all of these up to 10, I think, as prerequisites, except I'm not sure what this needs to go up to, but you'll need to definitely get these at minimum as prerequisites to 10, and they'll require all these behind as well to unlock the Ancient Foundry. And what the Ancient Foundry will do is it will, I think, unlock a new building similar to, say, like the blacksmith. And the only place I can think of this spawning, because I'm pretty sure it will spawn somewhere in the city here when you do that research, is over here in this little corner. And if we look again at Lord's Mobile, the exact same research you see here on the research tree, Lunar Foundry. The Lunar Foundry is a late game resource building that produces lunite, which is the same as Valyrian steel, basically, in here. So you create lumite with this building, and you then need to use that to create luminous gears. I think it's 100 lunite to create 1 luminous gear. So it's actually quite limited in how much luminous gear you can produce, especially in a day. So if you see here, you'll be able to level it all the way to 25 like a normal building. You see even here, requires 1 gold hammer to go from 24 to 25. It's literally the exact same systems as we see with buildings in our game. So at 25 it will produce 12,000 an hour, and that will be exaggerated more with some of these researches. I think there are some researches in here which increase Valyrian steel production, as you see here, but even despite that, it is very limited, I think, in how much lunite you can produce a day, and therefore how many luminous gears you can make, and therefore how many tier 5 troops you can make. So to make a tier 5 unit, you don't actually really make or train a tier 5 unit. What you do is you produce Valyrian steel from here, and with that building you will then craft Valyrian weapons, and then after you have these researches done, you can then equip those Valyrian steel weapons to tier 4 units, and that is how you get tier 5 troops. So you see here, to make 1 ancient infantry, it will be royal infantry and a Valyrian steel weapon. I'm not entirely sure how the healing process will work with these. I think in Lord's Mobile, from what I can read here, you'll also need this luminous gear to heal them, but I've never played this game. I honestly have no idea about it at all, so I'm not sure how the healing process works. But in terms of raw resource costs, I think because it just uses tier 4 units, the resource costs will be the same as tier 4s, which I know was another thing people were a bit worried about when this got announced, because the resource costs on tier 4s were already very, very high. Like if you have to heal a full hospital of tier 4s, if you have to do that 2 or 3 times, you just end up going broke unless you have huge amounts of stocks ready to go to heal up. So the healing cost shouldn't be as bad. And also, because of the system of Valyrian steel production, and the fact it will then cost 100 in all likelihood to create a Valyrian steel weapon, and that will only make 1 tier 5 per 100 Valyrian steel. Tier 5s will be in very limited amounts, but when max accounts get them, like the 3 million in time-specific events will give a ridiculous power spike over everyone else. You'll be able to meat shield them with even tier 4s, and solo people or rally people in like the ATDs of the world, where a bunch of people will have these, and the power gating through that will be quite large. It will be quite oppressive, I think, and I've made a small little spreadsheet just comparing the differences in stats between the units, and there are a few interesting trends here which you might not expect, because it does actually sort of change what we currently know about units, or at least currently make assumptions of. So if you look at the attack increase from tier 4s to tier 5s, for infantry they gain way more attack than spear does, and you can see just in the tier 5 list generally, for the counter units at least, the melee ones, infantry, cavalry and spearmen, all the values across the board, it's the same for health actually, have been narrowed very close together, whereas with tier 4s and before that we saw quite unique characteristics where infantry had lower attack, as you see here with the 93, but the higher health with the 97 there, whereas spear were the total opposite with way higher attack and the lowest health. Despite that though, spears actually always had the highest total stats in the game, so the highest attack, health and defense, which I haven't listed here just because it isn't as important, of any unit type in the game. And that was, in the early days at least, a big reason people focused on building their spear stats, just because if you're focusing on buffing one unit type, you will in theory get the most value out of buffing spears, just because they have the most base values to increase with the percentages. So at tier 4s, it was spears at the top, then infantry, then cavalry, whereas now spear goes from the top to the joint bottom actually. It is equalized, like I said, and this is very small values, but infantry is now the highest total statted unit in the game at tier 5. So I think infantry we already see ran like on blind front lines all the time. It's probably the most popular front line for sure. I'm not sure if you could say most popular unit type. It really depends like what sort of level you're playing at. But infantry are very popular. And I guess in theory at the top levels of the game, they will now only get more popular. And I think Inf Cav with tier 5s involved, just in terms of raw stats and fighting mechanics, is probably the best formation in the game. I think it might already be anyway, but now with cavalry's attack being brought to basically the same as spearmen, they gain 8 more or 9% more on their tier 4 unit type, and it brings them really close when you consider the speed of engagement of cavalry. Like cavalry, even though they had lower stats, I think in like raw DPS terms, quite a lot of people have tested cavalry to actually being the highest DPS unit type in the game just because of specifics like the speed of engagement, and this is only going to exaggerate that fact. So spears have really taken a bit of a beating here, I guess. They might have indirectly gained some value just because cavalry have had their health value increased by such an amount that it's like similar to infantry's health now, which it never was. But they still, on the front, if you're sending blind at least, they arrive too early. It makes it really awkward as a front line. If you're sending mono cav rallies as a max account, sure, that's a different situation. But with like mid-spender or free-to-play fighting, spears would in theory lose some value there. But in reality they wouldn't, because mid-spenders or free-to-plays are not getting their hands on tier 5s like ever, probably. But it's interesting to think about, I guess. So overall, from the jump from tier 4 to tier 5, cavalry gained the most actually. They went up 63 total stats, and then infantry with 59, and then like I said with spear, they've gone up the least. They've lost quite a lot of their niche effectiveness just in terms of raw stats here. And they're at the bottom now with 55, and bows, if anyone really cares, they've gone up the least of anything really. If bows had a bigger jump from tier 4 to tier 5, they might have gained a bit more prominence, but this really isn't enough to justify it. Like 16, 13, 11 attack between infantry, cavalry, and spear compared to tier 5 bows. It's a very small gap. It's even smaller actually than tier 4, as you see with infantry being 32 attack difference, and now it's just 16. So the DPS gap between the melee units and the bow units has actually narrowed, which doesn't help bows at all really. Bows live off just having insanely high base values, and they've sort of, in the move to tier 5s, had that niche dampened a little bit. So overall, I'd say tier 5s won't really affect the game like a lot of people feared they would, just because no one is going to unlock them. No one is going to get to these points of the research trees where you need over 20,000 ancient scriptures unless you are a max account that will spend thousands of dollars on black diamond packs when they inevitably get added into the store up here. That's how this is going to go, let's be honest. We all know how this is going to go. I don't think there's any need to really dress it up. So I think just avoid servers with people with tier 5s. You know, if you look at the rankings right now, avoid ATD, avoid FDH, avoid WTP, just avoid the max accounts. And if you match them in KVK, if you match them in CCS, just bubble, just forget they exist, and try and have fun in your own little world. Because fighting into max accounts with these buffed units, where their infantry have almost 50% more attack, the stats differences are already bad enough, the army size differences are already bad enough. This is going to exaggerate that fact by an absurd degree, and you will get soloed, no matter who you are really, by max accounts. Like I have already been soloed with my Lord Home by max or near max accounts in past KVKs. I think I tanked a hit from Ortizio with my Lord at home, and my wall was a bit messed up. It wasn't totally perfect. I'd lost a few troops already because there was no def KVK, but he was consistently winning solos on me with my Lord at home. Last KVK, I baited a solo from Savo's account. I put on mountain clan gear and put badges in it, had my wall all set up, and again, he won the solo on me. And like, I have a lot of troops, and my account is not weak. I have like all 4-star Awakened Commanders, mostly Epic Token Commanders. I have a fairly decent account, like it's not amazing, but max accounts are already soloing people like me with our lords at home. So with tier 5s, it will just be ridiculous. But luckily for us, we just shouldn't really have to worry about it. Not for now at least. And I think let's just hold on to that fact and be happy about it and just enjoy our time whilst no one is parading around with their tier 5s.